My name is Sadie, and I do a lot of the outreach for Digital Democracy Project, and I lead the Florida chapter. And so, Digital Democracy Project overall, we're all about building a voter driven system of government, putting more power in the hands of voters. So, we provide a free civic engagement platform where voters get the chance to weigh in on the same bills as legislators. We can show what the voters want and then compare it to how our legislators end up voting so that we can see how well they're matching what the voters want. And so I'm gonna pull up my screen and then I'll play this quick little explainer video. It'll give a good overview and then I'll jump more into some details. And just wave at me or something if the audio isn't cooperating.
Ever wish you could tell your legislators exactly how to vote? Well, now you can. And it's right in the palm of your hands. Introducing the Digital Democracy Project, a mobile voting app and online tracking system, connecting you to the process, giving you the power. You vote on pending bills, on issues that affect us all, every day, telling legislators how you want them to vote. There's no party politics, no big money, and no special interests. We only compare what voters want to what legislators actually deliver, and everybody can see it. Your representatives, the media, everybody, all from your phone. Plus, it's absolutely free. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You vote on the same bills as your representatives. We track it online in real time, a running tally. Then we take score. We add up every vote on every issue and we post it. You can see if they have voted with or against the majority. And come election time, now you know the score. It's powered by blockchain technology, keeping you secure. And with ID verification, it guarantees that all votes are real votes by real human voters. And don't worry, we never store, share, or monetize your data. And we never will. We're just putting the power where it belongs, right in your hands. So join us. We have the technology. You have the power. The Digital Democracy Project. This is what democracy looks like.
Right. So, yeah, on our website, how it works, voters get verified and they add their votes in through the Votes technology, which is now either a mobile app or a web app option. And then everything gets relayed to our website. So that way everyone's able to see it, whether you're old enough to vote or not. And so this is on our tally map. That's where we post all the live bills that voters are weighing in on. So to provide some background, in 2023, we launched statewide for Florida only, doing state legislation. We added in federal bills for 2024 for Florida voters. And then 2025, we expanded to where any U.S. voter can vote on federal bills. So back in February 2025, we had posted our first set of bills. And then on here, we'll provide a summary of the bill. We try to make it into easy to understand language so everyone can, like they understand the bill. Hey, Doug, do you mind muting? Getting a lot of background noise.
Background noise?
Yeah, if you don't mind just muting, I can, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And then, yeah, so there's a summary for each bill, and then I'll show some of the other resources, but we also provide info about like the status of the bill, the full bill text, and then pros and cons. And then for each bill, you can see the breakdown for each state, and for the country overall, you can see the raw totals, how many voted yes, how many voted no. And then, Sarah, that was one point I was going to make. There is an abstain option. So since all the bills are like resembling actual bills that are pending or introduced and that the legislators are going to have to vote yes or no on, that's kind of what we're resembling, I guess. So a lot of the bills are really complicated and there are things that sound good, sound bad. So that's very common that a lot of people may not agree with all of it, but that's kind of where the legislators are forced to either have to vote yes or no. So what I usually tell people, you can cast your vote if you want to vote yes or no, or you can choose abstain if you don't have an opinion. Basically, if you're voting no, that's like saying you want to keep things how they are. If you vote yes, then you want to make this change. And then abstaining is just not having an opinion, really. And then the Kialo is where people can add pros and cons. So that's where you can cast your vote and then go to Kialo and you can say, I support or whatever. You can share how you voted if you'd like, but then that's where you can say, like, I don't like this part of this bill, or I do like this part of this bill, and kind of elaborate on your vote. So that's one feature, and I'll pull that up in more depth here in a minute. But there's I think we're up to about 100 bills or so at the federal level. And since the session's like a 2-year for 2025 and 2026 together, you'll still be able to vote on all the 2025 bills. And then we're into 2026 now too. So these will continue updating. They typically are about every other week or so we'll post a new set of bills. So yeah, that is definitely a good way to stay informed on what's going on. And then I'll also mention too, we have a nationwide legislative forum. The next one's on the 18th. So that's when we'll go more into depth in the federal bills. So for tonight, we'll stay focused on the Florida state bills. So yeah, you can narrow down to a specific state and you can see the breakdown on the federal bills. You can see the breakdown for the state bills also. And then when you narrow down to the state, that's when you can see all the state level bills that are live too. So we started posting bills during committee weeks in October. And I know like the sale purchase of ivermectin was one of the first bills we had posted. So that's where, same idea, you can see all the summary, the sources, and then the breakdown you can also see to the state district level. And then for the state overall, and then you can select any district you'd like to see how voters had voted in that district particularly. And so this is where legislators can go on here, media, anyone can go and see, especially for legislators though, they can see how voters in their district, how they're voting, how they want them to vote to use to inform their voting. And then for voters also, this kind of gives voters the ability to get like a power and numbers effect. Not only can they say what they want, how they want legislators to vote, but the more people weighing in, the more pressure it'll put on legislators to influence how they're voting. So as an organization, we're not advocating one way or the other for the bills or for like voting yes or no on a bill, but we're providing the technology to give voters more of a say and more influence. So just relaying however the voters want their legislators to be voting. And then I do like too that we like to prioritize bills that look like they're advancing so we can give voters a chance to weigh in. But we do also like to highlight bills that may not get a lot of attention. Some bills that do pass that seem non-controversial don't get a lot of attention because they're not controversial. And then there's also bills that organizations may be advocating for that they like to spread awareness about that may be popular, but they just don't advance to the legislature, so they don't get attention that way. So I think we're up to about 50 bills. I'll probably switch over to this other page. I can see the total number. And then I just wanted to point out too, you can see the state Senate breakdowns too. So if you were like a legislator in the Senate, you can see how voters in your district are voting there too. And so this is all being done mostly before the bills come up for a vote on the floor. So voters are weighing in first, and then we'll have this input continue compiling it until session ends, really. You can continue weighing in on these. And then, so I'll pull up more resources in a second, but that's kind of the first part where the voters are weighing in. And then on our scorecards is where we're providing the technology to evaluate legislators by how closely they matched what the voters wanted. So each legislator gets a scorecard, and for each bill, you can see the middle column will show how that legislator voted on the bill. So you can go through and like view their voting record. And then the first column is how the voters had voted, how the majority of the voters had voted. So if they overall voted in support, it's a thumbs up, opposed is a thumbs down. And then the third column is just illustrating how often the legislators' vote matched what the voters voted. So if they match, they get a thumbs up. If they didn't match, they get a thumbs down. And that's meant to illustrate like how often they're representing what the voters want. And then the gray bubbles, if the bill didn't come up for a vote, you might see a gray bubble there too, or the legislator if they didn't cast a vote on that bill. And then, so that proportion of how often his votes match what the voters wanted is where this score comes from. So this legislator is like our highest score for reference. And then these will be updating by the end of session. We'll have all the updated scorecards with all the bills from this session too, and they'll continue to kind of compile. So these are older bills from previous sessions. And then this is something distinct about this too. Our nonprofit is not evaluating the legislators. We're providing the technology for voters to evaluate their legislators. So just comparing it to what the voters voted. So that's how the voters are the ones driving the accountability. And then at election time, voters can use this to help decide how they want to vote, if they want to reelect this person or replace them with someone else. And then the bills view page is where probably where we get a lot of use from, where most people will come here to view all the info on the bills. So there's different filters here. You can go back and view bills from previous sessions. And yeah, Florida's the only one that'll have bills for 2023 and 2024. And then for the current session, you can just narrow down to 2026 and then Florida. And you'll see some other state abbreviations on here too. We've expanded to carry state bills in other states for the first time this year. And then long term, we want to be in all 50 states for 2027. So we can post bills for voters in those states to weigh in on at the state level too. So for Florida too, there's also some categories here. If there's a specific topic or issue you're concerned about, you can narrow down and see bills related to those. And then I'll mention too the filters here, the way to sort the results. The score is the score on the bill scorecard page. So if it's a score of 0, the bill didn't come up for a vote yet, which a lot of these for 2026, they're not, we don't have the votes in there yet. A lot of them haven't advanced that far yet. And then, so like if I add in 2025, these are the bills that got voted on. And then the higher the score, the more often the legislators' votes matched what their voters voted. So kind of either all the majority of the voters opposed and the legislators opposed more often, or they supported, the legislators supported. So the more that there was agreement between what the voters voted, what the voters wanted and what the legislators voted, is the higher the score. And then, so that's there if you want to jump into previous bills. To kind of show you the overview, I'll pull up one bill from last year, just to show you what it looks like after the bill gets voted on. So yeah, HB 1205 was probably the one that got the most attention last year, about changing the process for collecting petitions to get a citizen-led ballot measure onto the ballot, the constitutional amendment. And so each of these bills, the Kialo is where you can see the pros and cons, different factors to take into consideration with your vote. And then that's where anyone can react to these, or you can like reply to them, or you can add your own pros and cons. And then they'll get checked by our team just to make sure they're related, they're appropriate, and then they'll get shown up on the website so anyone can see those. So that's one option for people to also add in more info. And then the full bill text will just take you to like the text from the state website, the actual text of the bill. So if you want to read more about it, you can see that there. And then the bill status, that's one that will show you, I'll pull it up here too. It'll show you kind of like you can see the bill sponsors down here and co-sponsors. And then like this one, you can see it was signed by the governor. So it'll tell you like the status, the activity of the bill, some extra info like that. And yeah, it has some dates for when those actions were made. And then another helpful resource on here too, the show organizational positions is a newer one. So that'll kind of help. it has these impact statements that'll help understand better about like what a yes vote means, what a no vote means, and why organizations may support or oppose. Because I know a lot of bills are like a ban on something. So like voting a no on a ban can be kind of confusing. So we provided those to try to make it more clear. And then orgs will do a search, and any org that has taken a public stance on the bill that we find in our system, will post those here. And then for like each of those orgs, you can click on that. It'll tell you more info, more background about the organization. You can see other bills they've taken a stance on, and then it'll also link you to their website too if you want to look more into about them or get involved, however. And if like you're involved with an organization and you want to take a stance on the bill as an organization and it's not shown up already, we're able to manually add more organizations too. So that's kind of the overview for the resources that are on there for each bill. And then, yeah, you can see the Senate and House breakdowns at the state level. And then down here, after the bill gets voted on, if it does, then you'll be able to see the middle column is how the legislator voted. And then this one will compare to how voters in that legislator's district had voted. And so this is where it's comparing how often the legislators' vote matched what their voters wanted. And then this score, what was this bill score, was 36. So 36% of the time, the legislators' vote matched what the voters, how they had voted. So, and then there's also a tab on here for the Senate as well. And then these will also link back to the scorecard for the legislator. And then by the end of, I think the end of legislative session, we want to have the scorecards for every member of Congress and U.S. Senator. And then by the end of session, we should also have the updated scorecards for the state legislators too. So then by election time, voters can be using those to evaluate them on their voting record and how closely they matched what they wanted. And then I want to quickly point out a couple things just to make people aware they're on here. We do have a media page on here where like our founder did a TEDx talk if you'd like to hear more about his inspiration for Digital Democracy Project. And then we'll post different media things on here. There's interviews. And if you'd like to learn more about the Votes technology, there's interviews with the CEO of Votes and other candidates on here that have supported Digital Democracy Project. And then as far as the candidates that support, we are always looking to connect with candidates or legislators that want to use this technology as a way to hear from their voters to inform their voting. So we'll post their logos on here, and like Rep. Escamani, Rita Harris, Carlos Guillermo Smith, and Kelly Skidmore are some of the legislators currently serving that have said they want to use this to hear from voters. So we also want to get more voters weighing in so they can get more input to help inform their voting. And then Dan's one of the candidates running for Congress. He'll come on our nationwide forums and provide like a legislative overview about the federal bills too. So he's kind of integrated this into his campaign and wants to not only hear from his voters, but vote the same way his voters vote in the app if he gets elected. And then I do want to super quickly, I don't usually bring this up, but since there's a lot of people interested in ranked choice voting, I want to mention we did a digital convention. Originally, we had done one when Joe Biden had dropped out of the presidential race, and just giving voters an opportunity to weigh in on who they wanted the replacement to be. And then at that time, we were also seeing who they wanted the vice president to be, the nominee to be. And then more recently, we did it for when when Trump had appointed Marco Rubio to his administration. Then we hosted this digital convention where voters could weigh in on who they wanted the replacement to be for our next U.S. senator. So it was kind of like open primaries where any voter just gets verified regardless of your party. You can use ranked choice voting and tally your preferences for who you wanted to be like the next U.S. senator. And I don't know if these votes are live on the map right now, but that's where you can see like the breakdown for. It'll also show you like the animation for ranked choice voting for how the votes got redistributed. So that was another resource we had provided that we'll probably plan to use again. We thought about using it as like a citizens election to give voters like a chance to use mobile voting and ranked choice voting in an open primaries format to kind of compare to like what the results are for like for a governor's race or some kind of race like that. So that's something you might see again in the future that we'll probably do again. And then I have not been watching the chat. The last thing I wanted to mention before we pause for questions or get into the bills is about the Votes app. So I know it sounds like some of you have already used Votes. And then Sarah, another point I wanted to make too, we now have Votes has added the option to vote in a web browser. So you can vote either in their Votes mobile voting app or through the like Votes web app. And you don't have to download the app that way. And then I'll point it out too. There's a link on each of the bills pages where you can go and log into Votes. And if you've already been verified, you just type in like your email, your phone number, it'll send a code, and then you can pull it up on your computer and add your votes in. And there's a search feature in there too. And then if you haven't been verified, you can do that through like your computer as long as you have a working webcam too. So that's an extra option. And then for those that aren't familiar, Votes is real certified mobile voting technology. They started, I think it was 2016, for service members overseas to be able to vote from their phones. And then additionally, voters with disabilities were able to use it. And they've been used in about over 100 or so elections. So we use their technology for the voter verification. And then, oh, did you have a question? I don't know if I was getting background. Okay, well, yeah, so we use their technology for the voter verification and then to compile votes, and then all of that gets relayed to our website. So if you haven't been verified, it takes about like 2 minutes or so to get through the process, and then once you're verified, you're able to vote on all the bills, the live previous bills and all the future ones. And so it'll walk you through creating your account, and then you'll use a photo ID and do a self-scan. That's the standard way that they're used for real elections. So once you get verified, you should be good to go and see the bills. And then we get asked a lot about the verification. So we require the verification because we want to know that these are real people, they're real voters. And for legislators, they can also know that they can trust the results to inform their voting. And then it helps prevent from like us not having bots skewing the results or voters voting multiple times, or even if a bad actor were to try to skew the results, misrepresent what voters want. So yeah, it helps us know that our results are reliable, and then it also carries more weight for voters. So legislators can't discredit the results too. So yeah, if you're not already, I'll drop the link to this page in the chat, but yeah, I'd recommend getting in there, and that's how you can add your votes in to the website. And then I think that's a good place to pause. If anyone has any questions or any other thoughts, you can drop them in the chat or come off mute, raise your hand, however.
I don't know if I have any questions, but I think when I first signed up, I'm not sure if I remember if it asked for my ID. Did it always ask for the ID, or is that new? Is that changed?
There was an option a while ago where there was a code where if we were signing someone up in person, we could enter that code when we're able to verify their identity in person. So maybe if it was before then, that might have been, that's the only thing I can think of. Because yeah, the photo ID for not interacting with us directly, that was the only option.
Okay, it must have been just such a long time, long enough ago that I just don't remember like having to do the ID, but I think that's great.
Yeah. And then if you have issues, I know you said something about getting a new phone or anything like that. I'll drop my email in the chat too. Definitely let us know if you have any trouble. We can help you get in there.
Okay, yeah. While you were talking, I was re-downloading it, and so I had to stop because it wanted me to upload my ID. But yeah, I'll reach out if I have any issues or anything like that. I do have a question though, as far as like trying to get uh, other whatchamacallit, representatives or the like legislator representatives on board to use this and to promote it. What sort of actions are being taken to communicate and to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll sometimes like send out emails to them. We'll probably do it maybe at the end of session or so. Because right now the response we get most of the time when we interact with legislators in person, they want to know how many voters are weighing in. So it's kind of like having the support of the legislator telling their voters they want to use it as a way to hear from them is really helpful to get more voters. And then, yeah, we hear a lot where they want more voters weighing in to have more input. So yeah, that's kind of the feedback we get a lot. So we are always looking for legislators that kind of this already aligns with something that they want that input from voters to inform their voting. So I think we talked about adding in a feature where people can contact their legislator through our website, like if they want to send the results. And then I think that would help spread more awareness.
Yeah, and I'm interested, I'm wondering if like I guess what in my mind what I was wondering is, do you have like monthly or like quarterly party, like phone bank parties where you motivate each other to call your representatives and say like, hey, I think that this is a really great idea. We would love your support, kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. We haven't done phone banks in a little while. We were phone banking voters though, but yeah, I hadn't thought about doing like having voters or especially constituents contacting their legislator. That's a good idea. So yeah, that's something I'll have to keep in mind.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, just for me personally, like if when I'm left to my own devices and I have to like do that myself, to be honest, like I get anxious and like even nervous picking up the phone and whatever. But like if I sign up for like a group that's doing it, or like a postcard writing group, then I get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that idea.
I have another question though. How many voters are signed up to the app? Is there like a number on the app or something that tells you, or?
Yeah, I actually have it pulled up on this page. There's about 24,000 that have enrolled.
Oh, it's right in front of me. Sorry.
Yeah, so they've enrolled in votes. That's throughout the whole country. And then I think we've had about 1,400 or so that have enrolled in Florida. And then, yeah, about over 120,000 ballots cast. Because I think we're up to I think we passed 700 bills that have been loaded into like votes on our website too. And then, yeah, it varies like which voters are voting on which bills and how many. So, yeah, we're always working on trying to keep people weighing in, because we'll send out a text message and an email when we post a new set of bills too.
So as far as like marketing this, do you hold like Facebook events, like informational like Facebook events to like market it or anything like that, or?
I create these like as Facebook events. I have like a post on Facebook that I'll do. I'm not personally on Facebook very much, so there's probably better ways that we could be, especially like using Facebook. So yeah, if you have recommendations there too, that would be helpful. But yeah, I know I should have these posted as events on Facebook that people can then sign up for.
Yeah, because I feel like that I like know a lot of people that would be interested in that, and I feel like that to attend a virtual event like this that can kind of like explain it and go through everything a little bit better and whatnot would help them commit to it.
Yeah.
Sadie?
Yeah.
This is John Schuster. Can I jump in here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I first heard about this in 2024. when I was on the board with the Rank My Vote Florida, and the president of Rank My Vote Florida, John Severini, he introduced me online to Raymond Perez, and at one point Raymond was sort of interested in taking over Rank My Vote Florida, and when I first heard about it, I thought it was called digital voting, and I was asked if I was interested in that, and I thought, well, wait a minute, we have enough people that complain about paper ballots and complain about mail-in ballots and complain about voting at the polling places. Said, boy, if we actually had people voting on their cell phones, that would be crazy. I did not understand that that's not what that was. And so I said I was not interested. I passed on it. And just a thought, maybe other people have too, because like me, maybe they just misunderstood and thought, oh no, you guys are nuts. Everybody has a cell phone. You'll never keep that. You talk about rigged elections, it'll be crazy. And it would be, at least now. I mean, maybe someday that's how we'll actually vote. So first comment is be careful that when on the elevator speech for this, that people know, no, you're voting on bills that have not passed yet. And then a comment would be, I'm really impressed with the technology, and I just can't imagine, how do you get all this information into the system about all these bills, the descriptions, the pros, the cons. Bills are introduced at a rapid rate in Florida and nationally. How many people are doing this? It seems like there'd be a lot.
Yeah, we have a small team actually, and we're all volunteers. What was super helpful, our legislative coordinator, his name's Charles. He works as a legislative aide in Tallahassee. So he's been the one who's been going through. They started initially, they were reading the bills. Like there was 2 aides that were reading the bills and kind of comparing summaries. And yeah, it took a lot of time. A lot of the bills at the state level too are really long. So our founder, Ramon, has a background in AI. So we've integrated AI to be able to kind of process the bill text and generate a summary, kind of like pick out the main parts. And then we go through and like review those. Charles does a lot of the Florida and the federal ones. And then we'll also, like with ranked choice voting, there's Upvote Virginia. They had a ranked choice voting bill here. So we reached out to them and we're like, hey, can you review this? And so we'll do some kind of like review or comparison or get some kind of input before we post them. So that's been a lot of how we're doing the bill summaries. And then the Open States Plural is that link that we were linking to. They kind of scrape the websites of the state legislatures, and that's where they're posting the vote results for how the legislators are voting. So they're doing a lot of that. So we're kind of linking to their resource. And then I do not have a background in technology, but like our team, there's a couple people that are on the tech side of things. I can't even explain it well enough. They do it to where they can pull like the votes from the open states and then they get relayed to our website. So that's all like an automated process. And yeah, them having a tech background helps to where they're able to get a lot of this automation that, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do for sure.
Another question, do the legislators access the system the same way that the voters do, or do they have a different way of accessing the system?
Yeah, it's set up to where we wanted to add a lot of transparency. So yeah, they can go through the tally page the same way and see all the results. So yeah, the same way everyone else does. And then that's where they can narrow down to like the district level, their aides can access it too. But that did make me think too, kind of to where the alternative right now is where individual voters are, especially emailing or calling legislators. We definitely support people doing that too, but we wanted to add transparency to where everyone can see like how everyone feels, how they're voting on the bills too.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who does contact my legislators fairly frequently by, sometimes by letter, emails usually, and and getting on lists. And I can imagine that now with the small numbers of people, I can imagine legislators looking at that and saying, there's 100 people commented on this one. Heck, I don't care. It's not enough to care. But if there were thousands, then they would have to care, I think. And maybe, you're starting off with people who are usually opposed to whichever administration is in power at the time. I notice in the scorecards we do tend to get a lot of the elected officials don't vote the way we're asking them to, real often, but I can see how with enough volume this might turn around, and they might actually rely on it and find this more convenient to find out how their voters feel than just looking at, having their aides say, okay, we got 7,000 emails opposed and we got 1,000 emails in favor. So I guess the people don't like this bill. Is that kind of what the goal is in the future? Or?
Yeah, you actually explained it really well, because I think a lot of it's going to come with the scale where it'll be really effective. So the legislators are getting input from more voters, and then I think the more people weighing in, the more pressure it'll put to where they'll feel like they have to listen. And then in the meantime too, like even on an individual level, being able to stay informed on what's going on and weighing in, I think will help also keep people engaged and informed on what's going on and more motivated to get involved or vote too. But
we could ask our legislators, we could inform our legislators about this and say, hey, I'm using this system. Why don't you? And the more, again, I'm preaching to the choir, but the more they participate, the more useful it's going to be. So I'm liking it more all the time now.
Oh, good to hear. Thanks. Yeah, I think that is a good idea to have some kind of integration to where people can individually contact their legislators and ask, because I think that would be really powerful too. And then, because if we get the legislators on board, it does help motivate a lot more voters to weigh in too. So I think that's a good idea. I'm going to have to take some notes after this call. You guys have a lot of good feedback.
That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I will say too, I'll send a follow-up email. I don't want to forget to mention, but we have a Slack channel. If people are familiar with Slack, it's more so like an internal messaging system. So if anyone's welcome to join, have a way where we can stay informed and you can stay in touch with our team and relay bills to us, different things like that. We can talk about organizing ideas in there too. So I'll send an invite to everyone in a follow-up email too. And Anna, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share, or Doug?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
It's all very new to me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll jump into some of the bills here in a second too. All right. And Doug, did you have anything you'd like to share?
I mentioned at the beginning, maybe I'll just, if it's okay for me to say, I started a small YouTube channel that's small but growing, and it's Make Moderates Matter, and the focus is on empowering moderation either through political parties and organizations or through systematic changes like ranked choice voting we talked about, proportional representation, fusion voting. And I hadn't heard about Digital Democracy Project until just recently, but it's completely right up my alley. And so I collaborated with Sadie and put out a YouTube video to my channel actually just yesterday. And you were asking earlier about what are we doing to try to promote the whole project, and that's one example. I mean, I get about 800 or 900 views. It's not viral, but every little bit helps. And I think the more that we just it's incremental steps, and the more that people hear about it, like John, you just reacted, and I think you're liking what you're hearing, and that's been my experience with the people that I've been talking to that subscribe to my channel. And it's just, you just got to get the ball rolling. And I think the more that, the word of mouth gets around and the more people, like I just stumbled into this and now, I'm reaching out to, my subscriber base. And so I'm optimistic about it. I just think it makes so much sense. And I can't believe that Sadie and her team are, like you said, doing this, because it seems like just an incredible amount of work. But if these tech wizards know how to use AI to kind of create all these things, that's all the more power to them, And but I just think the concept is just really great. And particularly, where I'm coming from as a political moderate, I'm just so tired of the polarization in the parties and all that. And this is just completely neutral. It's like we're not screaming at anybody. There's no fighting. It's just simply voters voting, and then collecting the data and sharing the data. It's very data driven, but it's completely like, the opposite of all the yelling and screaming that you hear going on right now out there in the political world. And so this is a way to provide direct feedback on specific bills without yelling and screaming, and I just think it's such a great concept in that regard. So
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. That is something we also like about, we try to keep the politics out of it so that people are focused on the issues and the content and not so much left versus right. So yeah, I'm glad you made that point. And Doug, if you want to drop the link to your video in the chat, definitely feel free to do that. Because yeah, that is a good point to people. We definitely appreciate you making that video and spreading the word that way. So yeah, even through social media, people's own networks, that's super helpful. We definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I just mentioned about the AI tech wizards. I'm on my iPad and I don't know how to drop the link.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can include in the follow-up email too.
Okay.
That might take a minute to hunt it down.
But anyway.
And then yeah, in the Slack channel too, we can continue like posting videos like that as well. So yeah, I think we'll jump into some bills, and we don't have too much time left, so I'll probably try to provide like a quick overview. And then something I definitely don't want to forget to mention, there's also on the vote page, there's a little bot you'll see in the corner, and our founder has a background in AI, so that's a tool that he had created where you can ask questions about the bills. I like to ask, like, why was this bill filed? Like, can you provide reasons for opposition? Or like, if you want to ask about the vote record status, anything like that. Or if you're reading a bill and something sounds confusing, that's where you can ask and it'll kind of provide more info. Because we try to keep the summaries to like 500 or so characters so it's not too lengthy. But that's this VoteBot tool is where you can kind of get more details, dig more into the bills. So that way people can better understand the legislation. And yeah, he's got a background in that. So it's all based on like the text of the bill and then those resources that we're kind of connected with that are providing that info. And then it will do like a web search too. So yeah, that's another resource I definitely encourage you to check out if you have questions. And then, so where are we at? We're at, okay. I wanted to see what total number of bills we're at for this session. So yeah, 57 bills. And then I know too, there's one that we've been asked about. I guess there's a Florida version that they're calling the SAVE Act. I think that's one that we'll be posting in this next set of bills. We've been asked from voters to post that one. So I think that's one that'll be coming. And so yeah, I think I'll jump on to the one that I had pulled up just to start. So this housing bill, for an example, this one would require cities and counties to allow ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which I had to ask were small secondary homes located on the same lot as a primary single-family home in single-family zones, and removing some extra requirements. And then it lets owners be able to keep their homestead exemption and then still be able to rent this out. So kind of like a way to provide more housing is what it's kind of focused on. And then, yeah, includes a study on tiny homes and new finance options. So that's where, yeah, if you want to see like who sponsored it, you can go through and look at that. And then the co-sponsors and the actions on it. And then let me jump back here. And then I always like to look and see like which orgs have taken a stance. Yeah, I know the city of Miami Beach, that was one I had asked. And I guess a lot of the bills, what happens a lot is the state tries to pass like a statewide standard, but then that's preempting like what local governments want to do. So I know that was some of the opposition to this bill too. And then this one's one of the newer ones. We don't have too many voters weighing in on this one, but yeah, we had like 19 voters, 59% that supported this one. And then I'll probably try to move a little quicker through these just so that we can kind of touch on more bills. And then if someone has a question or wants me to jump more in, then I can dig a little deeper. And then these will all be available for you guys to check out on your own too. Designation of official state flagship. I was learning that that's something that they propose to change. Yeah, the state flagship, I guess there's a state that's symbols or a state flag, like it's like a ship. I was thinking flag, but yeah, so there's a symbolic flag ship that's tied with the state that they're looking at changing. That was one of the bills. Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Initiative, parimutuel betting and racing facility reform. That one was about like allowing permit holders, the tracks, to not have to continue doing live races. So that was another one of the recent set. Materials harmful to minors was one that I did hear that had passed. That's one about the book bans, kind of adding to the book ban restrictions. So defines harmful to minors, lets parents and county residents object to any classroom or library item or reading list. Items flagged as pornographic or harmful must be pulled within 5 school days, and literary or artistic value can't be used. So yeah, added more restrictions to that. And yeah, there were a couple orgs that had taken a stance on that one. And let's see, I think the voters were opposed to that. Okay, a lot of them were opposed to that one. And then, yeah, dental therapy, criteria for determining criminal gang membership. That one was interesting. The Judea and Samaria, looking about changing the wording, the use of the word West Bank. And that one was about public employees relations commissions, was about unions, changing the union laws, putting more restrictions in a way. And that's one that I would think we would have had more orgs that came up on that one. And yeah, those are the results. And then the further you go back, the more votes typically, because those have been in there longer. So yeah, there's bills on all kinds of topics. So it's a good way to stay informed. Even if you're used to like a specific area, you can kind of get more awareness about bills related to other issues too. So yeah, there's too much in here, but we're down to the last couple minutes, so I'm kind of trying to just provide more of an overview. Yeah, the national popular vote, that's one that's shows up in different states. Yeah, they're trying to change the state bird again, and employee protections, inmates, and Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance. The civil liability is another one that gets a lot of attention. So yeah, there's tons of bills, and we'll have these ongoing events about every other week. If I remember, I scheduled one for February 25th on Wednesday. So yeah, depending on how many questions there are, depends on how many bills we'll get through. And John, did you have a question or comment you want to share?
Yeah, just a question. Does the Florida State Legislature have a listing similar to a listing of bills that have been proposed and are in committee? And do they have the same basic thing that you get it directly from the state of Florida? I
So
know you can't vote on it, but
yeah, often what happens with the state website that I don't really like about it is that you usually have to know like what bill you're looking for to search to find out about it. So I know there's probably other ways where it'll just list out, yeah, like in order, but there's all kinds of bills. So we kind of try to like narrow down ones that are more, I guess, interesting. But yeah, that is an option too. It's like flhouse.gov is the Florida website, and it's like flsenate.gov.
I say, so you don't necessarily, you're not doing all the bills. You're there's some that are not on your list. It would be on the state government's list. Huh?
Yeah. I think there's usually like over 1,000 bills that get filed, so we try to narrow down.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, thanks for the question. Did anyone else have any thoughts, questions they want to share before we hop off?
So you said that you're having another meeting next week?
Yeah, we'll have these ongoing about every other week during session. So if more people find out about us, that's a good way for them to join and get like a full overview. And then, yeah, we'll have time to like discuss some of the bills too.
Okay, but so this is just specifically, these meetings are specifically for just Florida, or they're open to anybody?
So these are focused on like Florida bills. So yeah, usually Florida voters, and then the nationwide ones are open, especially open to anyone. Those are the federal bills. So those, I think our next one's on February 18th, and I'll try to include all these links in the email too. And so yeah, those are our virtual events that we have right now.
So you said there's a nationwide virtual events?
Yeah, where like voters from across the country can join, but those are the ones where it's like the same idea, but we'll focus on the federal bills more so.
Okay, and so like how, because I'm on the website, but like I don't see a tab for events.
Yeah.
Do you have to become a member first, or?
No, that's probably something that I'm going to pass this along to now that you brought that up too, but they're actually under volunteer or where our events are posted. And yeah, we have Washington and Virginia ones too.
So I'm on the website and I don't see anywhere to volunteer.
Yeah, it's under more at the very bottom on that tab.
Okay. So I think what the issue is to access it, you need to have the screen open all the way.
Oh, okay.
Because the drop down menu doesn't scroll, doesn't scroll down. It like if you have your screen like partially open, it doesn't scroll with the page. So it just looks like it stops wherever the screen stops, I guess. I don't know. So
I'll have to look at that and see if we need to fix something. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And then I'll include the links in these too in case if people have trouble finding them, so you can sign up that way too.
All right. Oh, cool. Now I see it. Nationwide Legislative Forum.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. Yeah, if you have questions later on, definitely let us know.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good night.